The morning of my father's 80th birthday smelled like October wood smoke from the neighbor's chimney 2 houses down, and something faintly sweet from the apple trees in the backyard that had been dropping fruit all week. I noticed it the second I stepped out of my car. The way you notice things when you're nervous and your senses sharpen to fill in the silence. I had driven 4 hours from Columbus. My daughter Lily, who just turned 6, had fallen asleep somewhere around Zanesville and woken up bright-eyed and full of questions the second I pulled off the highway. She had her grandfather's birthday card in her lap the whole ride. A card she'd made herself, crayon drawings of him fishing at the lake, stick figures of the two of them sitting on the dock. She'd worked on it for 3 evenings. "Is Grandpa going to love it?" she asked, clutching the card as I unbuckled her from the car seat. "He's going to love it more than anything," I said. I believed that. I really did. My father turned 80 on a Saturday in the middle of October. He still lived in the house where my brother and I grew up, a wide, cream-colored colonial in Morgantown, West Virginia, with a wraparound porch and a big backyard that backed up against a hill covered in maple trees. In October, those trees went red and orange, and the whole yard looked like something off a postcard. I used to think there was nowhere more beautiful in the world when I was a kid. Part of me still does. I hadn't been home since Easter. Things with my brother had been strained since the spring, and I told myself we'd iron it out eventually, the way families do. My brother, his name is Trevor, has been married to his wife Melissa for 9 years. I'm not going to pretend I ever fully warmed to her. She has a way of taking up every room she walks into that I've never quite known how to navigate. My father loved both of us, and he'd always managed to stand with one foot in each world. I respected that. The plan, from what my father had told me on the phone 2 weeks earlier, was simple. A small birthday lunch at the house, just family. He'd specifically said he wanted Lily there. "I want to see my granddaughter," he'd said. "Bring her." So I brought her. We walked up the porch steps, Lily holding her card in both hands, and before I could even reach for the door handle, it swung open. Melissa was standing in the doorway. She didn't smile. "Hey," I said. "We made great time, actually. I thought we might hit traffic around Bridgeport, but it was totally clear." "This is a family lunch," she said. I waited for her to finish the sentence. She didn't. "I'm sorry. Trevor and I organized this. It's a small thing. We weren't really expecting you to bring." She glanced at Lily, then back at me. "We've got limited seating." I heard myself laugh, the involuntary kind. "Melissa, this is my father's birthday. I know whose birthday it is. He specifically asked me to bring Lily." "Well," she folded her arms, "he's been tired lately. He says things. I'm sure he just forgot how many people were already coming." Lily had gone completely quiet beside me. I felt her slip her hand into mine. "I just want to see my dad," I said. "It's his 80th birthday." "I know." Melissa's voice had gone flat and final, the way a door sounds when someone closes it with intention. "I'm asking you to keep it low-key. Maybe come back in a couple hours when everyone's had a chance to settle." I looked past her through the glass. I could see the hallway, the old wooden bench where we used to leave our school bags. I could see the kitchen doorway. I couldn't see my father. I didn't say anything else. I just took Lily's hand and walked back down the porch steps. I buckled her back into the car seat. She still had the birthday card. "Mama," she said quietly, "why aren't we going inside?" "We're just going to wait a little bit, sweetheart. But I wanted to give Grandpa his card." "You will, I promise." I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the maple trees. I didn't cry. I wasn't at the crying stage yet. I was at the stage where everything feels very still and very loud at the same time. My phone rang 6 minutes later. The screen said Dad. I picked up on the first ring. "Where are you?" His voice was sharp in a way I almost didn't recognize. My father is a gentle person. He coached Little League for 12 years. He calls me every Sunday morning. He has never once raised his voice at me. But right now, he sounded the way he used to sound. The one time I'd seen him truly angry, when a contractor had cheated him on a roofing job the year my mother got sick. That same quiet, controlled fury. "I'm in the driveway," I said. "You're in my driveway?" I said. "You're in my driveway?" Yes. A pause. Then, you turn around and you come back inside this house. Right now. You hear me? I turned around. My father was standing at the top of the porch steps when Lily and I came back up the walk. He was wearing his good flannel shirt, the dark green one I'd given him 2 Christmases ago. He looked thinner than Easter. He'd lost some weight since the summer, which I'd noticed in photos but hadn't quite accepted until right then. When he saw Lily, he went down one step and opened his arms, and she ran to him with the birthday card still clutched in her fist. "Happy birthday, Grandpa," she said into his shoulder. His eyes were wet. He held her for a long moment and then straightened up and looked at me over her head. "Come inside," he said. Melissa was in the kitchen when we came through. Trevor was sitting at the table with his brother-in-law Kevin, and they'd both gone very still. My father didn't look at either of them. He put his hand on my back and walked me to the dining room, where 2 extra chairs had appeared at the table as if they'd always been there. "Sit," he said. "Both of you." Lily set the birthday card against the centerpiece and folded her hands in her lap. My father sat at the head of the table. He looked around at everyone, at Trevor, at Melissa, at Kevin, at me. And he reached into the front pocket of his flannel shirt and took out a folded piece of paper. He set it on the table. He didn't unfold it right away. He just put his hand flat on top of it and looked at my brother. "I have a question for you," he said, "and I want you to think carefully before you answer." Trevor had a glass of iced tea in front of him. He didn't touch it. "The savings account at First Community Bank, the one I opened in 1987, the year after your mother and I bought this house." My father's voice was even. "Can you tell me why there's $11,000 missing from it?" The kitchen went quiet. Not the comfortable kind of quiet, the held breath kind. Trevor said, "Dad, this isn't. I've been managing my own finances for 55 years, my father said. "I had a minor stroke in February. I told you both. The doctors cleared me. My mind is fine." He tapped the paper. "The banker, his name is Mr. Gerald Chu. I've known him 20 years. He called me last Tuesday. As a courtesy. Because something flagged on the account." He unfolded the paper. "3 withdrawals," he said. "July, August, September, $11,200 total. Each withdrawal was authorized with a signed letter." He looked up. "The letters have my signature on them, but I didn't write them." Lily looked at me. I gave her the smallest shake of my head. "Trevor." My father's voice didn't waver. "I need you to tell me what happened." Trevor's jaw tightened. He looked at Melissa. She was looking at the table. "We were going to tell you," Trevor said finally. "Tell me what?" "We've had some trouble with the business. Kevin's business." He glanced at his brother-in-law. "We needed a bridge. We thought, you have more than enough, Dad. We were going to pay it back before you even noticed." "Before I noticed." My father repeated the words slowly, like he was testing their weight. "We weren't stealing. It was a loan. We were. You forged my signature." My father set the paper down flat on the table. "You withdrew money from an account I have held for 37 years without my knowledge or permission. You forged my signature on authorization letters." He paused. "Do you understand what that is?" No one spoke. "That's fraud," my father said quietly. "That's bank fraud. That's identity fraud. Those are federal offenses." Melissa made a sound. Not a word. Just a sound. Trevor said, "Dad, come on. We're family." "You sent your wife to turn my daughter away at the door on my birthday," my father said. "With my granddaughter, who is 6 years old." He looked at Lily. His voice softened for just a moment. "She had a card for me." Lily nodded solemnly. "I drew the lake," she said. My father smiled at her. The first smile I'd seen since I walked back through the door. Then he looked back at Trevor. "I want the money returned within 60 days, he said. "I am speaking with Gerald at the bank on Monday. I am also speaking with my attorney." Melissa looked up sharply. "You're gonna press charges?" "I'm gonna take advice," my father said. "What I do with that advice is my business." Trevor and Melissa left before we had cake. Kevin left with them. None of them said goodbye to Lily. My father sat at the head of the table while I cut the cake, a yellow butter cake from the bakery on Walnut Street. which had been my father's preference for every birthday since I could remember. Lily got the corner piece with the rosette. She ate it with the careful seriousness of someone performing an important duty. My father told me about the bank call the way he tells most stories, slowly, in the right order, without leaving things out. Gerald Shue had flagged the account because the withdrawals were out of pattern. My father's account had been essentially static for years. Same small monthly transfers, same quarterly interest. 3 large withdrawals in 3 months, each one just under the reporting threshold, each one authorized by a signed letter. It had looked off to someone who knew the account. Gerald had called as a professional courtesy. He'd also already made copies. "What are you going to do?" I asked. My father was quiet for a moment. He was looking at Lily, who had moved from the table to the window seat and was watching the maple trees in the backyard. "I called Paul on Thursday," he said. "Paul is his attorney, Paul Weaver, who handled my mother's estate and has been my father's lawyer for nearly 20 years. We spoke for an hour. Paul believes we have clear grounds." He folded his hands. "A civil claim for the amount. Potentially a referral to the DA's office, given the nature of the forgeries. Trevor's going to say it was a misunderstanding." "Trevor can say whatever he wants to say," my father said simply. "What he cannot do is explain the signature on those letters, because he forged them, and Gerald has the original authorization documents, and the handwriting is not mine." He paused. "Paul is working on it." I looked down at my plate. I thought about all the Thanksgivings and Easters and Christmases when I told myself that Trevor and I would figure it out eventually. That Melissa was just difficult. That every family has friction. "Dad," I said, "I'm sorry I didn't push harder to come home more." He shook his head. "You raised a child on your own, in a different city. You didn't have anything to be sorry for." Still nothing. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. His hands were the same as they'd always been. Big, with crooked knuckles from the years he'd spent working construction before he went into insurance. "You showed up today. That's what matters." Lily climbed back up to the table and leaned against my father's arm. "Grandpa," she said, "you didn't open my card." He laughed. It was a real laugh, the kind that came up from somewhere deep. He picked up the card and unfolded it carefully, taking his time with each panel. I watched his face as he looked at the stick figures on the dock, at the blue crayon water, at Lily's handwriting on the inside that said, "Happy birthday, I love you to the moon." "This," he said, "is the best birthday card I have ever received in 80 years. Lily beamed. "I want to be fair, because fairness matters to me. I don't know exactly how bad things got with Kevin's business. I don't know what Trevor told himself to justify it. I don't know whether he thought of it as borrowing, or whether he'd convinced himself our father would never notice, or whether he'd just made a terrible decision in a desperate moment and let it compound into something he couldn't undo. Maybe all 3. I've thought about it a lot in the months since, and I still don't have a clean answer. What I know is that he forged our father's signature 3 times on legal documents, and then he organized a birthday lunch and had his wife turn me away at the door so there'd be fewer witnesses at the table when it was time to pretend everything was normal. That part I can't get past. I stayed through the weekend. I slept in my old room, which my father had kept as a combination guest room and storage space, and Lily slept on the air mattress beside me with her stuffed rabbit and her purple blanket. On Sunday morning, my father made pancakes, which he's done every Sunday morning for as long as I can remember. He still makes them from scratch. He still adds a little vanilla extract. He still cuts lilies into triangles without being asked. We talked about my mother, who passed 6 years ago from ovarian cancer. We talked about the lake house in Seneca County, where we used to take summer vacations when I was a kid. We talked about the maple trees in the backyard and whether my father should have the big one on the left trimmed because it had lost a few big branches in last spring's storms. We didn't talk about Trevor, not until Sunday afternoon when Lily was napping and my father sat down across from me in the living room and said, "I updated my will last spring. Paul helped me." I didn't say anything to anyone because I didn't think it was anyone's business. He folded his hands in his lap. "But I want you to know." I waited. "The house goes to you," he said. "The savings accounts, the lake house, all of it." He said it simply, the way he says most things. Trevor's share was adjusted following some concerns I had in the spring. This situation with the bank, that's separate, but I wanted you to know where things stand. I didn't know what to say. Dad, you don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. He looked at me steadily. You have been here. You have paid attention. You've driven 4 hours with a 6-year-old in the back seat because it was my birthday. You've made her understand that this family includes her grandfather. He nodded toward the hallway where Lily was sleeping. That matters more than most people realize. I thought about what he'd said for a long time after I drove back to Columbus that Sunday evening. Lily fell asleep again somewhere around Zanesville, and I had 2 hours of dark highway and the radio on low to sit with it. I thought about the years I'd spent feeling like the difficult one. Like Trevor had the easier relationship with our father because he lived closer, because he could stop by on weekday evenings, because he had a wife who remembered birthdays and organized family occasions and knew exactly how to present herself at the center of things. I thought my distance, physical and otherwise, was a disadvantage. It turned out my father had been paying attention to something different. Not who was closest, but who showed up when it was real. Who called every Sunday. Who brought the granddaughter, even when it was inconvenient. Who remembered that the maple trees went red in October and that he liked vanilla in his pancakes and that some things are worth a 4-hour drive. In November, Trevor called me. I almost didn't pick up. But I'm my father's daughter, and my father believes in answering the phone. I need you to know I'm sorry, Trevor said. He sounded tired. Not sorry you found out. Sorry I did it. I didn't say anything. Paul and I talked, he said. Melissa and I are going to repay every dollar with interest. We're selling the boat. We're going to make it right. Does Dad know you're calling me? No. Then this call is for you, I said. Not for me. He was quiet for a moment. What does that mean? It means apologizing to me doesn't fix what you did. Dad is the one whose signature you forged. Dad is the one you need to keep talking to. Another pause. You're not going to make this easy. No, I said, I'm not. We hung up. I sat in my kitchen for a while. Lily was in the living room watching something on her tablet. The apartment was warm and ordinary. Life, doing its ordinary thing. I don't know what happens next with Trevor. Paul tells me the civil claim is moving forward. Whether my father refers anything to the DA's office is still undecided. These things take time, and my father is not an impulsive person. He will take Paul's advice, and he will think carefully, and he will do what he decides is right, the way he has always done. What I know is that I drove 4 hours on an October Saturday with my daughter and a birthday card drawn in crayon. I know my father stood at the top of the porch steps and opened his arms before she even reached him. I know she gave him the card with the stick figures on the dock and the blue crayon lake and the words she'd printed herself in her 6-year-old handwriting. I know he called it the best birthday card he'd ever received. And I know that when Lily climbed back up to the table and leaned against his arm, she was exactly where she was supposed to be. That's what I hold on to. That, and the maple trees going red in October, and the way the whole yard looked like something off a postcard. And the feeling I had standing at the bottom of the porch steps before everything went sideways. Just for that one moment when the air smelled like wood smoke and apples, and I didn't know yet what was waiting for us at the door. Some moments you keep, even when everything around them falls apart. That one I'm keeping. I've thought a lot about what Trevor told himself in the months before that birthday. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because I think it's the part of the story that actually matters, not the bank documents, not Paul's legal filings, not even the will. The part that matters is the decision. The moment someone decides that a shortcut is worth it, that no one will notice, that family is close enough to fair game. Trevor didn't start out as someone who forges signatures. Nobody does. You start out making a smaller choice. Maybe you borrow something without asking. Maybe you bend a truth just a little. Maybe you let someone else carry a weight you could have helped with, and you tell yourself you'll make it up later. And then later comes and you make another small choice. And then another. And by the time you're sitting at your father's birthday table with forged bank documents in the background, you've been making those choices for so long you've almost convinced yourself it wasn't really you who made them. That's the thing about how we become who we are. It's not usually one dramatic moment. It's the accumulation of all the ordinary ones. My father understood that. He told me once, years ago. I think I was in my early 20s and complaining about something. Some situation at work where I felt I'd been treated unfairly. He said, the way you handle the small things is the way you'll handle everything. I didn't really absorb it at the time. I do now. What I keep coming back to is this: nobody handed me anything that day. My father didn't update his will because I showed up on his birthday. He updated it because of a pattern he'd been watching for years. Because I called every Sunday. Because I drove 4 hours when it was inconvenient. Because Lily drew him a birthday card in crayon and knew exactly where he liked to sit and what his laugh sounded like. Those things don't happen by accident. They happen because you keep choosing them. The same way Trevor kept choosing the other thing. I think about Lily a lot in this context. She's 6. She's watching everything. She watched me get turned away at that door. She watched me buckle her back into the car seat without yelling, without falling apart. She watched me pick up the phone when her grandfather called. She watched me walk back up those porch steps. I didn't explain any of it to her in the moment. I didn't have to. Children absorb what they see. They learn what it looks like to stay calm when something is unfair, to keep showing up when it would be easier not to let the right people handle the things that need handling. That's not a lesson I could have taught her with words. She had to see it. The hardest part of the whole thing, harder than being turned away, harder than finding out about the money, was realizing that Trevor and I had been given the exact same father. The same Sunday pancakes. The same flannel shirts and fishing trips and crooked knuckle hands reaching across the table. The same model of how to be a person in the world. And we had gone in completely different directions with it. I don't know what that says about anything. Maybe it just says that who we become is genuinely up to us. That inheritance isn't really about money or houses or lake properties. It's about what you decide to do with what you're given. The good example, the patient father, the ordinary Sundays that add up to something you only understand much later. My father is still in that house in Morgantown. The maple trees are still in the backyard. Lily already asked if we can go back in the spring. We're going back in the spring.